The Knicks are currently active on the trade market, even though only a few days ago they made a blockbuster move to get OG Anunoby on this team. According to multiple NBA insiders, they are currently targeting Karl Anthony Towns. And according to one insider, he reports that the New York Knicks are heavily interested in adding Towns to the roster. We're going to break down these reports and so much more today. So be sure you're subscribed to the channel and have notifications turned on so you don't miss a second of the new content. And now, let's get started. The Knicks are still interested in adding Karl Anthony Towns to this roster. Guys, when I first heard this report, my face nearly fell to my hands. I could not believe it. If you've watched this channel or you've been a fan of this channel for a while, you know how I feel about Karl Anthony Towns. I think he gets paid like a superstar, but he does not perform like one. He's never shown up like one. And even though the Timberwolves are a very good team, in my opinion, that team is built around Anthony Edwards. It used to be built around Karl Anthony Towns. Why did that change? Because it didn't work. It couldn't work. It can't work with Towns as your number one option, but he's getting paid like a number one option. So I don't understand why the New York Knicks are so heavily interested and invested in trying to get Towns on this team. But according to NBA insider Shams from The Athletic, he reports the following on the New York Knicks and their interest in Towns. According to Shams, he reports the Knicks are always going to have interest in Karl Anthony Towns, but nothing has materialized as of yet. If that wasn't bad enough, our other NBA insider and Ian Begley from SNY also reported the following based on Shams' report. On Tuesday, Shams from The Athletic reported that the Knicks will always have interest in Karl Anthony Towns. According to Ian Begley, that's true today, just as it was true on the day Knicks team president Leon Rose took over. Rose is Towns' former agent. He and Knicks executive vice president William Wesley are close with Towns and his family. Knicks senior vice president of basketball operations, Gerson Rosas, ran the Timberwolves during Towns' tenure. A few days after Leon Rose and the Knicks go out and get OG Anunoby and add him to this Knicks roster, now we're hearing reports of the New York Knicks being interested, actually still interested in Karl Anthony Towns, because these reports are not new. You could track them back, as Ian Begley stated, to when Leon Rose took office. Even besides that point, going back to this past offseason, even though the reports were about Donovan Mitchell and to an extent Joel Embiid, Karl Anthony Towns reports were still out there because there were a number of reports at that point in time indicating that the New York Knicks wanted Karl Anthony Towns, and a lot of people internally wanted the Knicks to go after him and add him to the roster. But a deal didn't get done, and ultimately, the Knicks did not go after Towns this offseason. But according to Ian Begley, if they had, they could have definitely added him to this roster. According to Begley, Minnesota has to be willing to trade Towns, but he believes the Knicks could have traded for Towns in the 2023 offseason. But the Timberwolves won't be trading Towns this season. Entering play Tuesday, they had the NBA's second best record. Towns' play has been a major factor. That game, he had 21 points and he was shooting 40% from three, 9 rebounds and 3 assists per game. That is absolutely sensational for Towns. But Minnesota will incur a stiff luxury tax bill once it signs Edwards to an extension. The Timberwolves have committed big money to Towns, Gobert, and Jaden McDaniels. Shout out to Ian Begley and Shams of The Athletic for giving us the following updates on the New York Knicks and where they stand on the trade market right now. And going back to what Shams stated, as you can clearly see here, he mentions that the New York Knicks have interest in Towns. They always have interest in Towns, but nothing has materialized as of yet. And I'm so happy that nothing has materialized as of yet. Because if they go after Towns, if they make that type of trade, he's getting paid superstar level money. So they're going to have to send out a superstar level type of player in order to get Towns on this roster. I don't think Julius Randle stays on this roster if the New York Knicks go out and get Karl Anthony Towns. And in my opinion, right now, I would pick Randle over Towns. He gets paid less, he plays a little bit better, and his numbers are a little bit more impactful, especially during the regular season. I'm not saying that Towns isn't elite for what he does. He is one of the best shooting big men in the entire NBA. I can't deny that. We have to give him kudos where he deserves them. But in terms of his defense, he is not the greatest defensive player. And in terms of his strength in his body, he has it, but he never utilizes it. He has almost zero post play. He does not like to play in the paint. It's like he doesn't like to take contact. You'll find him a lot either in the baseline or in the mid-range or definitely by the three-point line. That's where you're going to find Towns. You never find him cutting, driving, or taking contact down low, trying to get to the line, trying to get people in the foul trouble, just trying to make it easier for himself. He has a big body. He's strong. Why wouldn't you utilize your size? Julius Randle had that same issue last year, was in love with the three-point shot. This year, his threes are down. He's being bully ball Randle, and it looks phenomenal. And the Knicks look better because he's doing that, because he's playing to his strengths. Julius Randle is not the player you want to see shoot 10, 12 threes a game. You want to see that type of player utilize his strength, his size, and drive down low and bully players. And that's what he's been doing this season. And you gotta love it. You have to love to see it. Karl Anthony Towns is not the player the New York Knicks need. In my opinion, he doesn't move the needle enough. He gets paid like a superstar and doesn't play like a superstar. He does not do anything the New York Knicks need besides shoot the three incredibly well. And I get it. If you need a big man to stretch the floor, Karl Anthony Towns is your man. But if you need that same big man to also protect the paint, also play sensational defense, also make sure they get rebounds like nobody's business, also make sure they can help the other players on their roster by covering for them on the defensive end. If he could do that, I think every team in the league would want him. But we all know Karl Anthony Towns is not that type of player. He is a gifted offensive player. He's a good defensive player, not a great defensive player, and he'll never be an elite defensive player. I don't care if he plays under Tom Thibodeau for the next 5 years. Thibs can't fix that. Thibs can't make him an otherworldly defender. Thibs can't make a Mitchell Robinson for that matter. And Mitch can't become Towns. Mitch will never become the offensive player that Towns is. But Towns will never become the defensive monster that Mitchell Robinson is. And we have to acknowledge that. I don't understand for the life of me what the attraction is to Towns for the New York Knicks. I don't believe Karl Anthony Towns will help this Knicks team as much as a lot of other NBA fans think he will. I just don't see it. Maybe if he had more of a defensive input on the game, especially in the paint, maybe I would think differently. If he had more of a post game, maybe I think differently. If he was a fierce, battling competitor in the paint, as well as driving, as well as when he was shooting threes, maybe I would agree with you. I just don't see that type of caliber player in Karl Anthony Towns. He is a very good player for who he is, but I don't think he's ever going to get better. I think he is who he is, and I think he's locked into that mold of being an extremely good, an extremely confident, and an extremely accurate three-point shooter as a big man. But that's really it. I don't think he's ever going to give you more than that. And because of that reason, and I think the Timberwolves noticed it too, he can never be your first option and he can never be your best player. He has to be either your third or your second best player on a championship team. And second best player, in my opinion, is stretching it just a little bit when we're talking about Towns. He's never done it. He's never showed up when the lights have been brightest. Why would he come to New York and do it for New York? New York, the place that has even more pressure. And let's not forget, one of the most passionate fan bases in the entire world with the New York Knicks fans. Because I'll tell you one thing. If you thought Timberwolves fans were getting on Towns because he wasn't doing something right, or he wasn't shooting the ball right, or he wasn't finding his defensive assignment right, could you imagine what New York Knicks fans would do to him? They would eat him alive. He misses a defensive assignment, Knicks fans are going to spot it out. It's going to be on social media. It's going to become a bigger thing than it needed to be. I promise you. Towns is not ready for this market. I don't think he can handle the big stage, and I definitely don't think he can handle the media market that is New York. But the good news for him, for me, and thankfully for the Knicks, is that they can go ahead and look at him, desire him, want him, be interested in him as much as they want. They could call him their next target for trading. Good for you. Guess what? Minnesota does not want to trade him. Minnesota wants to pay all of those guys, including Edwards, and Minnesota wants to see what this team can do in the playoffs. And because of that, I don't think he's going to be available. And thankfully, that means the New York Knicks can look elsewhere if and when they want to upgrade at the center spot. They have a lot of options to choose from. I don't like them, but if you want to go after Capella, there's an option. My option for center, if you want to go out and replace Mitchell Robinson for this season with an athletic big, somebody who has just a little bit of a better offensive touch around the rim and still gives you elite defense, is Daniel Gafford from the Washington Wizards. That's the other person I think the New York Knicks should get if they really want to make an upgrade at the center position without having to break the bank and pay Karl Anthony Towns, who, by the way, starts his Supermax contract next year, and it starts at around $52 million. $52 million. Thanks, but no thanks. I don't want that Towns in my town. No thank you. I will settle for who we have right now, for the Knicks making other trades, and for the Knicks looking elsewhere to upgrade this roster with impactful moves. Because there are other moves out there they can make. This is not the move, though. This is not the move if you're Leon Rose and the Knicks. Please, if you can, avoid this move. And thankfully, whether they want to avoid it or not, the Timberwolves are going to make sure they avoid it because they're going to pay these guys. Thank you, Minnesota, for making me not have to worry another night of potentially the New York Knicks going after and trading for Karl Anthony Towns. But what about you guys? What do you think about this massive report about the New York Knicks targeting Karl Anthony Towns again and still having interest in him, even though they just made the OG Anunoby deal? Let me know in the comments below, guys, because honestly, I would love to hear from you. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment below. And of course, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knicks fans. Peace.